Episode 3, A Short Guide to Getting in Trouble. Chapter 16, Seeing Red. The drums pounded, a trumpet wailed, blood rushed through my legs, my hot face. The sun was beating down on a glorious autumn's day. Even sitting on the lake, it was hot. I was already out of breath, or I wasn't really, but it felt that way. In front of me sat the Cox, Samantha Raywell. Behind me, my supporting man in 7th seat was Luke Hogan. A starter held our boat against the dock, their face sweaty, looking over to the other starters with a dreaded eye. We were ready to race. I craned my body around, peering towards the end. It was so far away, just like it was this morning for the first race. But this race was it. Every single race I'd ever done in my life came down to this, my last chance to represent Leslie Grammer, and I held the keys to the engine of 8 men. My God, it's just so far away. I felt my world crushing down on me, everything and everybody just drifting further away as if I was in the center of an expanding space-time. I was totally alone. "Hey, Jimmy, eyes on me," Sam called, her hand covering the microphone. I stared at her with wide eyes, shaking down the feeling. To my left, Iowa College had their boat grabbed by the starter. All boats were in the blocks now. "Jimmy, this is your race, mate," Sam said. "Don't shit your pants. It's you and everyone else in this boat. First 10 strokes come free." "And what about the next 190? I squeaked. "They'll come after, but they'll come. I know you, and every man behind you will do them well." She uncovered her microphone. "Eddie, light touch," she instructed, then covered up the mic again. "Jimmy, you've got this. You're a rower. What are you?" I'm a rower," I responded. Louder. A rower." I banged the oar. "You're a fucking rower, mate. You can do anything." "And I'm a Senaver," I reminded myself in my head. "I have no limits." I felt the air in my rushed, panicked breaths. I felt the swirl of the gentle cross-wind, which Eddie in the bow seat was fighting against. I felt the carbon in the oar and in the boat. I was connected to this world in so many ways. I was bigger than my body gave me credit for. The announcer's speaker buzzed. Silence fell.
"Drew College, Leslie Grammer, oh sweet cheese, St. Jerome's Grammar, Ayr College, Melbourne College, Subiaco Grammar.
Attention!" I braced the oar, staring Sam in the eyes, not daring to break our gaze. Each millisecond passed with the anticipation of a lifetime. The banging of the drums and the wailing of horns was silenced in my head. I hung on the word.
Row!
Before you ask, we didn't win, not by a long shot. The story of my life isn't one of prevailing victories in the sports field. That is my father's tale. We came 5th out of 6, making an A final was already exceeding our expectations for the day, but to actually beat one crew, well, the crowd was going wild as we went past. It was neck and neck for 5th place, and we did it. We beat Drew College in the last 250 metres of that race. In the deep burgundy blazes, Leslie Grammer supporters traversed the rocky shore to get to the water and splash us as we went by. We held ourselves at quarter slide and let the boat glide by as waves of water enveloped us from the excited fans. On the shore was Natalie, who gave me an extra big splash using her subtle control of the water. Standing on the other side of the crowd from her were Reese Cameron and Celeste Bouvet. They gave up their grip on each other's hands to get into the water and splash us as we coasted by. For the first time, Reese seemed happy. He wasn't hostile, he had a smile, and he was enjoying the school spirit. It sickened me. "Surely you're not falling for his bullshit, Celeste," I thought to myself. Past the crowd, I could see Mum talking to a few other parents. She waved at me enthusiastically when we locked eyes. I'd already started rowing away. I smiled. I wish Dad could see how far I've come now, I thought to myself. I've still got a long way to go to be close to him. We took the boat around the point of the island and into the landing. Our coach was waiting for us there. We had our final emotional crew chat. We cheered, washed the boat, de-rigged, and went to load the trailer. As I masterfully dual-wielded 10mm spanners, I felt a strong presence behind me. I turned from sectioning the boat to see Natalie in the rowers-only area. I jolted, in my surprise, and passed the spanners to Luke Hogan. "Hey, you might want to get out of here before you get into trouble," I said. "We'll be allowed out in a bit." "I know, but this is pressing," she said. I looked around for eavesdroppers and nosy coaches who would push her away. The coaches were distracted with something on the trailer, so I entertained Natalie's little talk. "All right, shoot," I said. "We're being followed," she whispered to me. "Well, that's a heavy accusation," I gulped. "I've been feeling a Senaver presence all week. They've been leaving behind little trails of Quatra in the Quatra field. Red snakes and blips around us. Well, maybe they just live around us, I said. There's not much variation in our movement between home and school. School is near offices, so, that kind of works out. Well, that's what I thought, she continued, but they're here today. I can feel their red quattro around. They followed us. They're watching us. Really? I don't feel anything, I noted. Not surprising, no offense, Natalie said, and I frowned. You haven't been feeling weird at all? Well, I've been feeling claustrophobic, but that's because I was so nervous for the race. I once got so nervous for a race that I forgot to eat and I fainted from exhaustion. Lovely, Natalie groaned. But the feeling of being closed in could be their presence weighing on your soul. Sure, I half-heartedly agreed. I'll ask Celeste if she can feel it, or knows this presence. All right, you do that, I said. Don't wait up for me. I'm not going anywhere soon. And I'm certainly not going anywhere near Reese Cameron. I wish I didn't have to either, she grimaced. I smiled at our mutual disliking of the boy. What on earth is she thinking? Natalie laughed. Well, I don't think it's a laughing matter, I whined. Oi, great, what are you doing with your hands off the boat? My coach growled. I was knocked over by his voice. Even from a considerable distance, its harsh grizzle penetrated my very being. I scrambled back to the boat section. And you, he said to Natalie, this is for rowers only. There'll be plenty of time to talk to our stroke man later. Understood, Natalie said solemnly. She pivoted on the spot and left in an instant. Just as scared of authority as I am, I laughed to myself. I plunged my arms deep into the boat section and began unscrewing. I didn't know you had a girlfriend, Luke Hogan said. Huh? I poked my head up. Oh, her? She's just a mate. My voice wavered and my cheeks flushed red. Sure, he teased. She was desperate enough to talk to you that she risked being yelled at by the rowing coaches. Doesn't she know that they eat like nails and cement for breakfast? Well, clearly not, I said. You're embarrassed, aren't you? He poked with a grin. No, I objected. My whiny voice and determined objection caught the attention of the whole crew. Men rushed in to interrogate me with riggers in hand. She's cute, James, Samantha said. No, she's... I choked my words, trying to find some defense. Around me, there was a resounding coo. I groaned. You just watch me tonight, boys. I'll prove you're wrong at the after party. And I did. I rocked up with a 6-pack of beers, but didn't end up drinking more than 2 of them. Drinks were passed around, shots on trays, which seemed to all be handed to me. I was the stroke of the first men's 8. It was the first year that we didn't lose the race, and the first that I would drink at an after party. Everybody else started drinking at the Year 10 rowing after party. I had intended not to drink at all this year, but here I found myself in a party being handed an inordinate amount of shots by my teammates. I chatted to everybody and danced like there was no tomorrow. In the blurred lines of the night, I was set up with Samantha. We kissed on the dance floor and moved it to the outside bench. There were cheers happening around us all night, and we had to block them out to stay in the moment. I'm sure that I saw a disposable camera doing the rounds, which snapped a flash photo of us. Weirdly enough, I didn't like kissing her. It's not that she wasn't attractive or that I wouldn't usually have done it, but there was some other feeling, like I was holding out for something. I felt gross, and I felt almost like I'd violated myself in kissing her, and I'd never felt like that before. You're being stupid, I told myself in the moment. She's gorgeous. This is a dream. Don't be an idiot, just keep going with it. You'll get into it in a bit. But I never did, and I never stopped feeling gross about it. I went to bed very late that night and was not prepared for the popularity of my story once I went to school on Monday. So, Celeste came up to my locker on Monday morning. She held herself sweetly between the open door as I rummaged through my pile of sheets and books. I heard you had a successful night after rowing. Yeah, I laughed awkwardly. Apparently, Samantha's liked me for a while. I think that's the first time anyone has ever had a crush on me. It probably isn't, Celeste said. Girls keep secrets and very seldom tell them. Sure, I said. Well, I can say the same about your success a week ago, although I think you've extended your success. What, with Reese? She asked. Yeah, who else? It's exciting, isn't it? She smiled. You and Natalie made him out to be such a bad guy, but he's nice. Well, I mean, I'm sure he is to you, I said with scorn. Celeste frowned. Did Natalie talk to you about our stalker? I asked Celeste. I grabbed my books and closed the locker. She did, Celeste said. I can feel them too. I just didn't want to scare anybody by jumping to conclusions. Sure, I responded. So you recognize them then? No, she said. That's why I didn't think we were under threat. But the fact that they followed us to that lake in the middle of nowhere, it's suspect. I'll say, I added. Well, what do we do about it? I guess we just wait for now and stick together, Celeste said. If we wander off alone, we'll put ourselves at risk. Well, sticking together all the time could be hard, I pointed out. It will be, but we'll just have to be extra best friends, I guess, she smiled. And I need you to tell Natalie something. What? Get her to control her thread, James, she said, eyes serious. I can sense her orange quatre from here like she's standing next to me. The umbrella lady was right. She oozes quatre. It makes us an easy target. I've already told her, but I think it would freak her out if you said that you can sense it. She'd put effort in to suppress it if she knows you can sense her. That sounds dishonest, I said, but I'll see what I can do. It's for your safety too, James, she said, and Celeste leaned in, kissed me on the cheek, and was on her way. I was left bewildered, and immediately went to find Natalie. I found her, as I expected, outside her homeroom with all of her books in an incredibly neat pile in her arms. She wore her reading glasses and was reading some textbook on top of the pile. Hey, I said to her. She was so engrossed in her reading that she almost didn't notice me. Oh, hey James, she smiled. I heard you had an interesting after-party. Yeah, I laughed nervously again and scanned the hall. How does everyone know? It's big news, James, Natalie said. Most of the rowers might go to the other campus, but the news gets here. Everybody knows Samantha. Even I knew her. Alright, sure, I cringed. Anyway, look, this might sound a bit weird, and I can't lie to you, but you've got to use less quattro energy. What? She quizzed and leaned in closer, expecting me to whisper. Well, Celeste said that she can sense your orange quattro from the other side of the school. You need to control your thread. Alright, okay, she said, frazzled. I could see her eyes becoming glassy, her locket glimmered around her neck. Oh, I didn't mean to upset you, I said, but Natalie backed off. No, James, it's alright, she said. I know I'm the reason that will be found. I'm just trying to use less quattro now, okay? Gee, Nat, it's not like that. No, it is, she said. I take that responsibility, James. My emitzer is helping me to control my thread. I'm trying. Alright, I frowned, but whatever happens is on all of us. I hope you know that. It's actually mainly on Celeste. No, we were on their sites, James. Didn't you hear the lady? Celeste is the reason that we'll survive. She knows the ropes. Well, maybe, I said, but don't get down, You're inspiring, as a friend and a Snava, don't forget that. Natalie was taken aback that something so nice left my mouth. She smiled, and the happiness lasted past her confusion. I don't want to scare you, but the red quattro has been the strongest today, she said. They're really close, James. We're all in it together then. Let's not worry too much, I said. Whatever happens is destiny, right? Natalie replied, and I shrugged. Meeting you was destiny. Everything else is destiny, so I guess so, I reasoned. We both smiled. Her blue-green eyes stared into my soul. Anyway, I've got to get to my homeroom. I'll see you later. Actually, James, she stopped me, grabbing my arm. Her glasses slipped on her face. Would you mind sticking around with me at recess and lunch? Maybe get Celeste with us? Maybe we can walk home together today? Yeah, definitely, Natalie. I said, don't worry, we're a team. Celeste says that we need to stick together. I patted her hand, then took it from my arm. I gave her a see you later as I headed off to my homeroom class. Celeste, Natalie, and I walked home together. The last warm, sunny day of autumn shone overhead. Natalie walked from the main train station like she had her back strapped to a pole. She was trying to control her thread, as she put it, but Celeste whispered to me that she could still feel her energy. We didn't dare utter it to Natalie, though. The other Seneva is nearby too, Celeste told me. I have no idea how the two of you were feeling it, I said. You're just not connecting to the quattro field, Celeste said. It is difficult to do. It took me a few years. So, what, when you were 5? 3? She smirked. I thought so, I rolled my eyes. This is another lesson for being a Seneva in the streets, she lectured. And it's to use what comes naturally to you. You can't sense a quattro field, and that's fine, but the air is an extension of your soul and your senses. How about you use that? Right, I hummed. And Celeste was right. The breeze distorted my ability to do it, but I'd always had the expanded sense to judge space and distance through my connection to air. I'd been doing it since before I knew I was a Seneva. I closed one eye as I walked and keyed into the air around me. There was movement all around, from the eddies which swirled over leaves in the trees, to the branches that swayed and the hair which shuffled atop Natalie's and Celeste's heads. There was something moving faster than the wind. Actually, 2 things. The first was a car which came downhill towards us. The second was a figure, walking a distance behind us. I turned to see a regular man with a briefcase just embarking on the bottom of the hill. That's not them, Celeste said, but that is a good use of your powers. I smiled. We were walking to Natalie's house first. The way we had to walk took us up the hill from the train line, then over the football field at the crest of the street. Natalie became very suspicious as we reached the top of the knoll. They're gone, she said, looking around. The signal faded quickly, and now it's just gone? I felt that too, Celeste said. Maybe they're just observing us after all. We could be safe, you know. We took steps onto the oval. It was a large field of grass, surrounded on all sides by tall, thick Red River gums and pine trees. I became uneasy. All around, my senses were nullified by the great open expanse. But distantly behind us, I felt a disturbance in the breeze, right by the perimeter trees. I wouldn't be so sure, I said to the girls, looking around. There's something wrong here. I'm getting that feeling too, Natalie said as we came to the center circle. It's too quiet. Not for long, the commanding voice of a man rang from behind us. You were like a cat, Natalie would later joke to me. My eyes bulged from my skull, and my back arched. I immediately flicked my wrist to summon my staff and ripped my armor from the void between Omicronius and I. Natalie and Celeste appeared to do the same, to become Zamel and Genevieve. We turned to the voice. Coming towards us were 4 Ceneva. The one which spoke, I was sure, was the one strutting at the front of the pack. He had teal, squarish eyes and a triangular grill for a mouth. His armor was silver, purple, and gold, and he held in his hand an axe-like staff. This was Vestas, Heslick's Quattro scientist who I had met earlier. To those who don't know me, which I believe is only one of you, I am Vestas, Heslick's leading researcher into Quattro science, mathematics, and quantification. He stabbed his golden axe staff into the ground. 3 teal rings emanated from it across the grass. Smoke rose from the ground where the staff had breached the earth. I know that you are Makey, and you are Eva, but what is your name? He asked Zamel. You must be a very talented Ceneva for the amount of Quattro you use, he noted. It always makes it easier to find a Ceneva when they leave such a thick trail of bright orange Quattro. Zamel slashed her weapons across the grass and howled to the remark. The cry was projected from her soul and wailed the scream of a spectre. It was ghoulish, entirely inhuman, and it rattled my very being. I took a cautious step away. Vestas smirked at the outbreak, although underneath his confident facade he backed away a single step. This is my associate Niskeden, he said, gesturing to a Ceneva on his right. The Ceneva had a severely hunched back and an asymmetrical build. Their helmet resembled a massive, creepy grin, and one of their armored legs appeared to be prosthetic. It had bundles of hydraulic tubes connecting it to its pistons. They nodded a greeting and threw their staff weapon into the dirt. They proceeded to sit cross-legged on the grass by it. Niskeden. Keaton, I considered. As I had the thought, my face became drenched, or at least it felt like a bucket of water was poured over my head. I pulled a face at Natalie, then patted myself to realize that I was bone dry. I dismissed the sensation with a quizzical eyebrow. Keaton, I returned to the thought train. What was that again? I have heard of that power before. A mind reader. A foreign speaker reminded me of my own head. Their gravelly, harsh voice bounced between my ears. I stared at Niskeden, who had closed eyes, but smiled through his helmet. Ah, gee. And this is Faraver, a new recruit from the Russian branch of the Argol gang. Eva, I'm sure you'd know all about that. Genevieve groaned and sparked a blue flame across her sword. Faraver, a bright orange and incredibly sharp Ceneva, stabbed their dagger shaft into the ground. And this is Surulik, my student. Don't be tempted to go easy on her. She's more than capable. Surulik followed the gesture of her peers. Stabbing a weapon into the ground, that's the classic Ceneva greeting, I remembered. From what I could tell, Cyrillic and Faraver were women. Their Ceneva armor was more shapely, and their stature was shorter, if only by 1 or 2 inches. So, Vestas continued, I'm giving you all the immaculate opportunity to be an asset to the benefit of the entire Ceneva people. The 3 of you have unique threads which could vastly improve our understanding of Quattro energy systems. If you join my study right now, you will live much more fulfilled lives. If you don't, well, I can't say. Oh, shut up, Vestas, Genevieve called. This isn't about studies, is it? This is about selling me back to Arol and getting your money. Well, it certainly is not, Vestas rebutted. I don't know how many times I have to tell you idiots before it gets through your thick helmets, but I am not Eva Arol, and I put up a much better fight than she ever could have. Vestas grunted. I'm sure that's what you say to everybody, sweetheart. Even your friends, he chuckled, making a stupid smile beneath his helmet. I'm guessing that's a no from everybody then? There was no response. Fine, he sighed. You've made your decision, it seems. By helping Eva Argol, the 2 of you have become co-conspirators of Argol corruption here in Melbourne, and as such are enemies of the civilized Ceneva community. He ripped his weapon from the ground and pointed it in our direction. You will contribute to the cause of your brothers and sisters, but in a way which you can never imagine, and which I have long contrived. You have till the count of 3 to change your affiliations and willingly contribute to society, or I will force your cooperation. That includes you, Eva. Your hope is not lost yet. Beat it, Vestus, Genevieve hissed. 1. He grinned. His minions picked up their weapons, apart from Niskanen, who sat on the floor still. Zamel and Genevieve stared with cold, unwavering expressions. We each raised our weapons to the circle of the standoff. 2. Guys, why aren't we considering this offer? I squeaked. 3. Boo! The voice of Niskanen shouted into my head. I shrieked and shot and fired a bolt of quattro from my aimed staff. It flew towards Vestus, but was badly aimed enough that he did not have to dodge to avoid it. Oh. So that's your decision then, he snarled. He flicked his axe through the air, and an arc of pure lightning cracked from its fingertip towards me. I leaped out of the way and rolled through the mud. When I stood, quattrobolts were firing in every direction. The teal one came towards me, and I jumped over it to see it crash and bubble into the dirt. I fired one back at Vestus in retaliation, and tried to think strategy. There's no places to hide, I thought, glimpsing the totally flat oval, and no places to jump to, or from. Not much use being a Keaton in an open oval, Niskanen cracked into my head. I growled. A bolt of Vestus's teal quattro zoomed past my head, and I spun into action. I extended my soul through my pronged staff and gripped into the air by its end. I leaped off the ground and threw the air into the direction of Vestus and Niskanen. The grass blew over. A glob of mud flung onto Vestus' helmet, and he had to plant 1 foot back to fight the gentle breeze. My jump was deflected by the force of air leaving my staff. I landed on my knees, skidding into the mud. That's it, Vestus cooed. Boy, are you in for a treat. Sparks accumulated between his fingers. I backed up and fired a bolt of quattro, which missed. The sparks merged into liquid electricity which dripped and oozed from his fingertips. He lunged forward with his open palm, and an arc of blue power surged from it. I ran from its path, and it scorched the ground as it hit the earth. As I ran, a screaming bolt of lightning surged just a hair from my helmet and crashed into the ground in front of me. I pushed on the air to stop immediately. The lightning hung in the atmosphere, roaring with power. I stepped away to have another arc of electricity corner me on my backside, buzzing in deadly delight. I turned to Vestus to see that he had me trapped between arcs of deadly power. Straining at the power of the arcs he commanded, he used all of his might to draw his hands together. I glanced about in horror as the walls of electricity closed in on me. I forced a gust of air towards an arc to see that the air had no effect on them. I could feel the intense heat of the surging arcs as they kissed my shoulders' blades. I clenched every muscle in my armored body. A helix of bright blue flames licked Vestus's angular head. His eyes glowed in surprise, and he rolled out of the way. His arcs of electricity dissolved into the air, and I leaped for dear life away from where he had fallen. Thanks, I squeaked to Genevieve. I thought I was meant to be helping you out here. You've got a lot to learn, Mickey, she said between quattro blasts. Take out the Keaton. Take out the Keaton, I processed what she'd said. To dinner, preferably, Niskanen said in my head. Well, only if you're paying, I replied, lining up my shot in his cross-legged body. Pain engulfed me. I seized up. My biological body, wherever that was screaming into shock. My spine stretched itself out. My arms spasmed in their sockets. Hot, liquid agony raced through my body. I could see it pouring from my staff end as electricity, the grass by me, caught alight. Vestus was in front of me, fighting Genevieve. Niskanen had distracted me, and I realized that I had no idea where anybody was. I wasn't tracking anybody in the battle except for Vestus. It was his student, who I couldn't remember the name of, who was behind me, frying me. I convulsed to the ground. If my helmet had a mouth, it would have been foaming. My hand landed in front of me, and a bolt of green quattro involuntarily leaked from it. It flew across the field, through the battle, towards Vestus. Vestus leaped into its path. A marbled green and teal bolt of quattro emerged from his axe, and it flew back in my direction. I could see Zamel step out in front of me and fire back. Mud flung from the ground, commanded by her jeweled swords. Fire and lightning boomed overhead. Vestus's bolt traversed the field of flying debris and hit me square in the face. It rang through my head like hot gas in my veins. It made it to my thread, and I convulsed trying to fight it. It zipped up the pipeline into the void between Omicronius and I. My whole body became hot. I felt my connection to everything around me wavering and fading. I cried to Omicronius, but my calls went unanswered. My vision faded to black, and I passed out.